Thank you, everyone. So why don't we start off with a little bit of a Q&A for you guys. All right, so put your hands up if you think authorship order on papers depends on unwritten rules. The authorship order. So who's the first author? Who's the second author? There's some unwritten rules. Okay, some people. Great. Let's switch gears a little bit. Put your hands up if you think peer review is essential to publication. Okay, pretty universal. And then finally, keep your hands up if you think peer review is rewarded in hiring, promotion, or tenure decisions. One person, so most of the hands went down. So we're all too familiar with the system where things like credit run on convention, quality control runs on goodwill. My name is Patrick Prochazka. I'm at Duke University, and for the last year, I've been working on some of the problems. So let's look at this a little bit more closely. So the publishing process right now looks kind of like this linear flow where you write a paper, you submit it, you go through peer review, you publish, and you read it. But in practice, it's a system that routinely misattributes merits and hides essential labor. So right now, we use authorship order as a proxy for contributions, but it's generally quite inconsistent. It's vague by design. So for example, it'll tell you who did more work than whom, but not by how much. So if you were the second author of a paper, did you do 4% of the work or did you do 40% of the work? Nobody really knows. And despite that, it still anchors major career decisions, namely who gets tenure, who gets funded, who gets hired, and who gets invited to rooms where decisions are made. Moving a little forward in this linear pipeline here, once a paper is submitted, peer review is ultimately the backbone of quality control. Yet it runs entirely on unpaid, invisible labor with no persistent credit, no transparent auditing, and no meaningful incentive alignment. And this is altruistic, but structurally, it's uncompensated. And after the publication actually gets published, we pretend that things like journal prestige and raw citation counts are adequate measures of impact in fields, even though they systematically conflate visibility with value and reward signaling over verification. And the lack of incentive for things like replication studies has led to a widespread reproducibility crisis. And that's why you see, all over the place, these sort of sentiments where there's issues with peer review or a reproducibility crisis. So to solve some of these problems, we are currently working on Liberata, a novel preprint repository and diamond open access academic publishing platform that we think can solve some of the key solutions. So Liberata's platform consists of three major components that are all interconnected. The first component, in Liberata's system, instead of having ordinal authorships like first, second, last author, we replace this with a contribution share system, where each author is given a percentage stake proportional to their contributions in that paper. As a paper is cited more and gets more impact, the credit accrues to authors proportionally to their contribution shares. So those who contributed more to that paper, for example, as the primary author, receive more quantifiable academic credit from that paper's impact. Secondly, with these new contribution shares, authors can then trade their shares for incentivized peer review and replication. So as an example, we can allocate contribution shares to peer reviewers to create a direct incentive for high quality review. Let's walk through an example. So if a peer review, let's say that you've done, increases the quality of that paper and it leads it to be more impactful and leads it to get more citations, the value of that peer reviewer's share in the paper grows proportionally. The same model can be applied to replication studies, where researchers now have an incentive to replicate studies in exchange for shares. And thirdly, and finally, with both clear metrics around how shares are distributed, as well as the trading of shares for quality control, Liberata opens up a whole new suite of graph-based scientometrics that quantify the value of works, as well as the contribution of individual academics. This information being very valuable to researchers, institutions, and governments. So here's a little bit of just a summary of what we're building and how it compares to traditional preprint servers like arXiv or for private journals. I want to give a little bit of an overview of the project state right now. So we're a team of around 50 people, largely at Duke University. This includes undergraduate students, graduate students, as well as faculty and industry people. This is to ensure that what we're building is really, rooted in academics and for academia, but isn't sort of like just a hacky garage project. We've been supported by Duke University with some funding, and we've obtained a provisional patent for our new scientometrics. In terms of some upcoming milestones, in April 2026, we're going to be publishing two papers, one graph theory-based scientometrics paper about some of the new scientometrics that we could derive from Liberata. Secondly, a game theory-based paper about the academic marketplaces. And we'll also be publishing an open source Python scientometrics library in May. And most excitingly, we're opening up a closed beta in May 2026. So feel free if you're interested to scan the QR code. And I'll have this on the next slide. So thank you so much to the conference for inviting me to speak. These two codes will be for the information, and I'm happy to take any questions about Liberata. Thank you.